Could I just have the member in the black long sleeve top? Yeah, just there. Yeah.
So much. Thanks a million.
Thank you all for coming up.
I hope I can be heard okay. My name's Eric. I'm an Irishman myself. I come from the county of Longford. It's great to be asking a question before two historic Irish ladies, I must say. My question, Ms. Robertson, is about the rise in exclusionary nationalism at the moment, coupled with the anti-migrant politics that's prevailing in Europe and the broader West. Unfortunately, I think in recent times it's caught a hold of Irish politics, not electorally, but very much on the streets, with riots we've seen in Dublin, anti-immigrant protests. What do you think is an adequate response to this in the Irish context? I know in Irish history and in Irish nationalism there's ample examples of anti-colonial struggle, movements that have been on the side of the oppressed, not only in Ireland but beyond. Do you think there's enough in our nationalist tradition for us to co-opt a message of inclusive nationalism, pointing to figures like James Connolly, who himself was an immigrant, rather than ceding ways to short-termism and anti-immigrant politics that has actually crept into mainstream politics in this part of this country, the United Kingdom too?
Well, I think you half answered the question.
I hope so. I'm quite pessimistic.
But actually, I like your question, and I'd like to kind of answer it at the Irish level and also at the global level, if I may, because it's such an important issue. That kind of nationalism that is anti the other, meaning anti the emigrant, anti somebody who looks different. It's really an important issue. In Ireland, apart from what you were saying, I think we should also remember how Irish people left the country and went and made their lives in different countries, and at the time were able to cross borders and do that. When the famine caused more than 1 million to leave Ireland, as long as they could climb those steps and disguise if they had illness. If you had illness, you were sent home, back on the coffin ship, and probably died on the way home. But there were no borders in that sense. It's more recently that we have these awful ways of trying to stop people. So we have free movement of goods, free movement of money, particularly, but no free movement of people. And so Irish people should remember that other countries opened to Irish emigrants. And the reason I put the light in the window of my said on the day of my election that I would put a light in the official residence was because at that time, in 1990, we didn't have any policy for emigrants. We didn't have any policy for those centres in the United Kingdom, in Canada, US, Australia, etc., who dealt with Irish emigrants. My poet friend Evan Boland wrote a poem about the Irish emigrant, and she said, we put them out like lamps in the dark. And that light was so well received by the Irish diaspora that it kind of created a sense of togetherness, a larger Irish family, and the policies followed. We've now got much better policies, but we now have a different issue, which is people coming in greater numbers into the country. And we don't talk about that enough in Ireland. We don't talk about it enough in any country in terms of the value to a country, because those who come into the country, they're the brave ones, they're the strong ones, they're the inventive ones, they're the ones that were able to leave a situation of conflict or a situation of deep poverty and cross the Mediterranean or whatever happened. And I think, I think I think it's sort of easy to exploit. They're taking up our hotels, they're destroying our tourism, all these stupid things. We have to talk in terms of the value that they bring as human beings, etc., and see them in those terms. And I think it's extraordinarily important at a time when we're seeing such focus now on defence, on building up defence systems, and closing out people. This is exactly the wrong way to go, and we do need to address, and I think we need to tell more stories of those who've come into countries and been extraordinarily important in those countries. And you mentioned Connolly. Madeleine Albright was very good at telling those kinds of stories. Eisenhower, and I think we need to humanize the issues talk about the contribution being made by people. And I mean, we're seeing at the moment in the United States the worst of the worst, a deliberate divisiveness, deliberately sending in military where there is no need and no real problem. That's the worst of the worst. You know, that is the kind of thing that keeps me up at night. It is really very disturbing to see such bad example at the high level of a government that is very powerful. You know, it's very shocking.
Thank you. I'm going to take